everybody. My name is David Harrington. I am the owner and operator of the Cartoon Fortress YouTube channel that you've landed on today. If you're new here, I want to go ahead and welcome you and let you know that we do talk about movies here. If that's something that you're into, if you like watching unboxing videos, reviews, recommendations, that type of thing, this channel might be just right for you. So if at the end of this video it feels like something that you'd like, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and join us for future videos. And if you are a returning subscriber or viewer, I welcome you back. Now, the topic of today's video is actually going to act as an episode 2. If you've been watching the channel recently, you'll know that I uploaded a Criterion recommendations video. So at time of filming that video and also this video, we are still unsure if we're going to get a Criterion 50% off sale at Barnes & Noble. We still live in hope that that'll happen, but as of right now, at time of filming this video, there's been no official word from Barnes & Noble on whether that's going to happen or not. Regardless of that sale happening, I like to make recommendations, and so I'm going to go ahead and continue here into episode 2 and make 6 more recommendations on titles that you can get if you're looking to expand your collection, start your collection, or if Criterion's maybe something you're just interested in knowing a little bit more about. So we'll go ahead and jump right into this. I tried to get a wide range of titles to present here, so I've got a couple that are in standard packaging, and then we have 4 that are in the digipack packaging that are more of kind of box set style. So the first one here hardly needs any introduction. This is a 1980s classic from none other than John Hughes. This is The Breakfast Club. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite 80s movie, period. The cast is absolutely stellar. This film came at a time for me when I first saw it. Now, this came out in 1985. I was born in 1984, so I didn't see this movie, obviously, at the time that it was released. But this film served as a grounds for starting to understand humans a little bit more, if you will. It's the interaction between people that have differences and understanding differences in class and subjects like that, it's a pretty heavy subject for a younger kid, but I probably saw this when I was 12 to 14 years old, right around there. And as soon as I saw it, I was glued. It's been one of my favorite films of all time ever since seeing it, and I love what John Hughes does here. The cast, the dialogue, the music, it's such a product of the 80s, but it really transcends era and presents topics that we can discuss at any time. This is just as relevant now as it ever has been in terms of again, discussion on class, gender, different topics like that are still very relevant, and something that's presented here in the best way that John Hughes could have presented this material. So I can't speak highly enough of this film. And I know I mentioned earlier, but the music, John Hughes understood how to use music in film, and this is no exception. I love his use of music. Sometimes it's used very, very subtly, to the point that you don't sometimes even realize that there's a musical cue going in the background, but it adds so much intensity to the scenes. I think of a scene in particular with Ali Sheedy and Emilio Estevez where he's talking to her about her situation at home, and even as I think about it, I start to get emotional. I mean, it's so good, it's so rich, and such a rewarding watch. So I could talk about this movie for hours. But needless to say, this is a solid recommendation. If you're into 80s movies, if you're into dramas, very human-driven, very dialogue-driven pieces, I would look no further than The Breakfast Club. This is an easy recommendation. So, The Breakfast Club from 1985 and John Hughes. And just to mention really quick, if you're not familiar with John Hughes or some of the other titles that he directed, his first film was 16 Candles. Now Molly Ringwald is Anthony Michael Hall, but Molly Ringwald is really a staple in John Hughes films, and so if you're interested in 80s films or wanting to know more about John Hughes' work, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off are probably the top three that I would recommend. They're my three favorite John Hughes films, but there's a lot of other directions that you can go as well. He was even involved in films like National Lampoon's Vacation, which I totally love, but 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off are the three that I would recommend if you want to get started into the filmography of John Hughes. So, moving on to our next title here, we have the first film by Joel and Ethan Coen, the Coen brothers, and this is from 1984, so just precedes Breakfast Club by 1 year, and this is Blood Simple. And this is yet another film that I can't speak highly enough about. It's very suspenseful. Frances McDormand gives a really great performance, and she's really supported by a wonderful cast. In fact, we have John Getz, Frances McDormand, and Dan Hedaya, and Sam Art Williams. And then it also features possibly my favorite role in this film from M. Emmett Walsh. He's very, very menacing. He's kind of the he's one of the, we'll call him the antagonist, or he's kind of a secondary antagonist, but he ends up taking a pretty primary role in the story. And yeah, just very menacing, and it's just the Coen brothers are so calculated with the moves that they make in this film. It's a very well crafted thriller, and this is another one that is very human driven. It's about relationships, and it's about really horrible decisions and kind of consequences of those decisions. It almost feels like we don't really have good guys and bad guys, so to speak, in this film. It's kind of a group of people that are all making really bad decisions. The cinematography, the story, the dialogue, this is another one that just really fires on all cylinders for me. And I know they've got... the Coen brothers really have a wonderful filmography, but this really stands at possibly the very top of their filmography for me. If not, it's most certainly in the top three. In fact, if I'm going to push myself here and come up with a top three, this would be in company with No Country for Old Men, Javier Bardem, and Josh Brolin. It's just a fantastic film, cat and mouse type film, which is another great recommendation. And then to round out my top three, I'd have to go with Fargo, William H. Macy, and again Frances McDormand. It's just such a fantastic film, and that's from, if I remember off the top of my head, 1996. I want to say is when Fargo came out, and then No Country for Old Men is 2007, 2008, right around there. And Blood Simple is right there with those for my top three. But very easy recommendation, and it's their first film, and you can see if you're used to now the Coen brothers have a varied filmography in terms of genres. They move around a bit, but there are some really signature moments in this film that you see, and if you see this and then you see No Country or Fargo or Miller's Crossing or any number of their films, you can see they really came into their style and really stuck with a lot of ways that they make films just right out the gate. It doesn't feel it's too good to be thought of as, oh, that's just their first film, they were just kind of coming into their style, trying to figure things out. No, it really feels like they figured it out in this film. And so right out of the gates, the Coen brothers made a really great name for themselves. And so anyways, this is a really great recommendation. Yeah, from 1984, Blood Simple by Joel and Ethan Coen. Okay, so that does it for the standard cases. Now let's go ahead and move into some Digipack offerings here. And this is a director that I have to talk about. I've talked about him before on the channel. In fact, we've done some, at least one recent unboxing. In fact, it was the Grand Budapest Hotel. And this is right alongside Moonrise Kingdom. This is my favorite of Wes Anderson's films, and this is Fantastic Mr. Fox. This is a stop motion animated film, and the aesthetic here this is absolutely a product of Wes Anderson. You watch this or you watch his live action films, and they're very much in line with one another in a lot of the style choices that he makes. But the very obvious difference here is that this is stop motion, which he's also done Isle of Dogs. And I really like Isle of Dogs as well, but this is easily my favorite of even those two. And the voice cast in here is really great. The stop motion animation, it's amazing to me the style that he's able to capture. It instantly feels nostalgic, even though this is a newer film. This is 2009. Even though this was made in the last 11 years ago, it's interesting the style that he uses, because for me personally it feels instantly nostalgic. Just I don't know if it's the color or just the style of stop motion that it is, but it feels immediately nostalgic, but at the same time it is very fresh. It's very strange, and kind of what this film makes me feel. But the story is based off of a Roald Dahl, the Roald Dahl book, and I really love the adaptation here. It's one of Wes Anderson's finest pieces, and yeah, it really carries that Wes Anderson style with it. So if you are familiar with the work of Wes Anderson and you haven't seen this, I would highly suggest watching it. If you're new to the films of Wes Anderson, I would even suggest this as an entry point. So either way, you're going to win with Fantastic Mr. Fox. And as is always the case with these digipacks, there's some very nice packaging inside and an included booklet. This is the newer release, which is the slimmer packaging. I did own the original dual format edition, which had Blu-ray and DVD, and it was actually a thicker box, but I opted to go for the thinner box. I'm not against the dual format releases, but I certainly don't go out and try and obtain those copies. I'm perfectly fine with just the Blu-ray only. So that's the edition here. So this is a single disc version as opposed to the dual format 2-disc edition, which you can still find. It's not being produced anymore, but you can still find that for a really decent deal on eBay if you'd rather go that route. So, Fantastic Mr. Fox is a fantastic recommendation. All right, moving on to our next one here, we have one of the most iconic films, one of the most recognizable titles of all time, and certainly within the horror genre. This is George Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. This is one of those films that I could watch 1,000 times and really never get sick of. And the restoration that they have here, this is the best, in my opinion, the best that this film will ever look. There's really nothing that Criterion left lacking in this release that I think to myself, oh, I wish they would have done this better, or, you know, they would have included, oh, this extra feature or whatever. This is the best package available for Night of the Living Dead that we'll ever see. And in fact, if you go look back on the channel, in fact, it was one of the first probably few videos that I did on this channel. I did an unboxing of an Ultimate Fan Edition of Night of the Living Dead, which inside that box set actually includes this Criterion edition and a lot of other extras with it. So you can go back on the channel and check that video out. I think it's a really great set. It is out of print. I'm not sure what pricing on eBay and that type of thing would be if you wanted to get that set, but this set from Criterion is absolutely perfect, and it does include a new 4K digital restoration. Again, it looks absolutely pristine, and there is it feels like an endless amount of features offered here, including Night of Anubis, a never before presented work print edit of the film. So they really went all out in presenting all aspects of this film behind the scenes, and then you get a nice booklet inside and just really incredible artwork on this one. So this I can't recommend this highly enough. Night of the Living Dead from 1968, and again, this is a film, if you're new to George Romero's work, there's no better entry point than Night of the Living Dead. And even, I mean, obviously it's better if you're a fan of horror films to make this recommendation, but this is just one of those films that even if you're not a fan of horror films, I still recommend it. It's one of those independent American films that I feel like everybody should watch at least once. And I want to make quick note as well that there is an amazing release that I got pre-ordered. I pre-ordered as soon as I possibly could for Dawn of the Dead, which is coming from Second Sight at the end of October, just a few days before Halloween. They're doing just a stellar box set for that film, so stay tuned for that. I probably won't get that in until sometime in November, I would expect, but stay tuned for that. And then also go back and look at the Ultimate Fan Edition or fan box set, I can't remember what it's called, of Night of the Living Dead on the channel. But great recommendation here from George Romero. All right, next up we have a film from 1951. This is from a director that I'm newer to, but this has instantly become one of my favorite titles in the collection, and it stars none other than Kirk Douglas. This is Billy Wilder's Ace in the Hole, and this is, again, one of those films that feels almost more relevant now than it did in, well, I wasn't around in 1951, but it feels more relevant now than ever. I'll put it that way. Ace in the Hole is just really unapologetic in the way that it views media and kind of the media circus. And at times, if you watch this film, sometimes the literal media circus that accompanies events and kind of the social response to events that are happening. There's a lot of exploitation of the sensationalism of media and that type of thing that really is put in is really has the spotlight on it in this film. So it's something that I feel like anybody could watch. It doesn't feel like it's hard to access this film from a viewer standpoint. It's not it's very engaging and it's very thought-provoking, but it's not unapproachable. It's Billy Wilder is just such a fantastic director. I need to go in and watch more of his films, but anyways, I'd really like to know those that have seen this film, what your thoughts on this film are, because it's one of those that just I feel like merits a lot of conversation, and just the topics that are brought up here are again very, very, very applicable to the climate that we live in here in 2020, and something that I think everybody should watch. Another Billy Wilder recommendation, if I'm going to make another recommendation right now, would be The Apartment with Jack Lemmon. That's one of the more recent Billy Wilder titles that I've watched as well. So he's quickly becoming one of those directors that I'm very interested in and kind of diving further and further into his filmography. And probably his most recognizable title would be Sunset Boulevard. But he has done a lot of great films, and I'm excited to continue down that path. So Ace in the Hole. And I want to make note as well that Kirk Douglas's performance in this film is just electric. He's one of those characters that you're not soon to forget his performance or what his character makes you feel while you're watching this film. It's just a very electric, very, very on point performance from Kirk Douglas. So Ace in the Hole. All right, now the final title that I want to recommend here, I'd be remiss if I didn't include at least one title from D.A. Pennebaker, who has become probably my favorite documentarian filmmakers. I love his style of filmmaking, and usually he's working with a large it's not just him, it's not solo pieces, it's usually he has some creative partners or partners that he produces and makes these films with. So but it's definitely a product of D.A. Pennebaker and his filmmaking, and I love the choices that he makes. The style of filmmaking here is really where you feel like a fly on the wall. It's that there is a camera present, and he says something, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's just boils down to the fact that he likes to just have the camera present and just let whatever's happening happen. And I love that. I love feeling like you're just looking on at these whatever events it is that he's covering. And in this case, this is the complete Monterey Pop Festival, and this is from 1968. Was when the Monterey Pop Festival took place, and there are so many musical talents that are featured in this film. It's just mind-boggling, and it's really interesting to see the beginning of some of these careers. For instance, we have Janis Joplin, and I believe, now I'm by no means a fantastic resource for the history of music, but I believe this was her debut performance, or at least her first big public performance was here on the Monterey Pop Festival, and she's with the group Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin. And then we also have Jimi Hendrix, Otis Redding, Simon and Garfunkel, the Mamas and Papas, The Who. Really, I mean, just a who's who of music in the 60s. And then we also have, so we have Monterey Pop, and then we have Jimmy Plays Monterey and Shake, Otis at Monterey. Now Criterion offers just Monterey Pop as a single disc edition. Now this is a digipack. It's kind of a box set. It's a thicker set here. And in fact, let's just go ahead and pop this open here. So we have this really cool packaging on the interior here, and then you have a nice thick book, and then you have this 3-disc set here. So a lot to get into here, and not only the films, but you have some really great extra features to get to as well. I don't know if you can see on here, there's just an absolute wealth of supplements to get into here as well. So 1968 Monterey Pop, the complete Monterey Pop from D.A. Pennebaker. Another solid recommendation, and just a really great looking set. So that does it for the recommendations. I'm sorry if I'm babbling on about some of these titles. Sometimes it's hard to find words when you're recommending these films because you love them so much. These are all titles that I would buy, that I think are even worthy of a blind buy. I think these are some pretty universal films in terms of just being able to access them regardless of what your favorite genres might be. I think there's elements at play in each of these titles that make them pretty universal in terms of titles in the collection. Very, very accessible, and even with Night of the Living Dead, like I said, if you're not into horror films, I still think it's one of those that everybody should watch at least once. So that's my take on it. Take it for what you will. Those are my recommendations here for episode 2 of my Criterion recommendations series. So that's something that I hope to continue, and hopefully we do have a Criterion sale coming up here, but we'll see here in the coming days of this month whether that happens or not. I do live in hope that they'll have at least some form of this sale. There's a lot of great new releases. We've got the Bruce Lee box set coming out this month, which for me is the number one set that I'm excited about for the sale, and most certainly that titles that are coming out this month are debuting in the collection this month. And then we've got Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story making its debut in the collection this month. We have War of the Worlds coming out on July 7th, I believe. July 7th or July 9th, right around there. I can't remember which day is Tuesday, but so a lot of great titles debuting in the collection. So there's no shortage of things that that can be recommended. And really, I should probably just look over my shoulder here and make this another easy recommendation. So this is the Godzilla, the Showa era films, 1954 through 1975. This came out last year and was really the big release. This is the big Spine 1000 release, and a very easy recommendation. I love this set in particular for the way that it showcases the artwork. For each of the films, there's just some really stellar artwork and just a really wonderful overall presentation here by Criterion. Definitely some unique packaging here. There's nothing else in the collection quite like it. It's very much a book meant to be opened up and enjoyed for the sake of, again, the incredible artwork, and there's some great writing in there as well to read up on. So before this video gets any longer, I'll go ahead and end it there. But let me know in the comments down below what recommendations you would make. If you're a Criterion collector and there's titles that you'd like to let people know about, go ahead and drop that down in the comments below and we'll continue the conversation there. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you on board here and for future videos and to comment. I love having conversations with people about film. I love knowing what other people are thinking and what other people would recommend, or what your thoughts are on the recommendations that I made. Do you agree with my recommendations? Are there ones maybe that you don't care as much about in the pile that I recommended today? Definitely let me know. And after you subscribe, definitely hit that like button and also the bell icon. That will notify you of future videos that I upload, so that you'll be in the know on when that happens. So until next time, this is David signing off with Cartoon Fortress, and again, thank you very much for joining me on the channel today, and you have a wonderful day.